Valorant is the kind of game that has an ever-changing meta, with constant updates, an active pro circuit constantly reinventing what top Valorant looks like, and a map pool that receives regular attention. You can't get out of circulation for too long, or else you'll find yourself far behind. So if you're wondering what to pick for the best winning odds, here's the newest tier list for patch 6.10. Starting with the best of the best, Jett is still the best choice in the game for Duelists. Her tailwind dash opping playstyle hasn't changed a bit. Her updraft and space taking ability work well on attack side executions or defensive retakes. Her ultimate Blade Storm allows her to play risky vertical off angles floating in the air. Her cloud bursts support everything mentioned before, since she can hide in them from information darts or flashes. She can use them to entry into sites, smoke choke points, or areas with utility like Killjoy's turrets to deny info. The list could go on and on. In all honesty, a Jett player who is on a roll will push any match into a win, because she isn't only the best duelist in the game, she's also the best Sentinel in the game, since she can anchor sites with an AWP arguably better than Chamber did at his peak. Yeah, we just said that. An easy S tier for Jett. Raze comes at a close second in the S tier, since her kit complements Jett really well in double duelist comps or as a solo duelist. She is easily the best agent to grab a Phantom or a Vandal with, since her entry with double satchels is still the fastest way to get into a site. Her satchels also bring value in breaking utility, peeking angles, or taking vertical fights across the map. You can even spice it up with judges or shorties on tighter spaces with some satchels like U-Haul on bind to take insane space. Her showstopper forces players to run for the hills, unless your name ends in Rosa. Finally, her boombot while nerfed is still great in combat or in tight spaces. So the explosive plays should favor the queen of blowing things up, especially now that bind is back in the map pool. If there is one thing that can counter the average Jett player AWPing away, it's the Raze diving you with the judge in hand or a rocket in the other. S tier. With no duelists in the A tier, Yoru leads the B tier as the best balanced choice for duelists. Flash duelists in general have found the value compared to initiators dwindled over this newest meta, so as one of the only duelists with a flash that can be used to support teammates effectively, Yoru has climbed in the power rankings. His kit is also more tuned to maps like Bind, which have found their way into the map pool, with his gate crash blending perfectly with the large map changes made to Shower's TP or back A site for locations to play mind games. His fake out is still a powerful space taking tool when he takes space or uses his ultimate dimensional rift. All this being said, he is still not strong enough to solo carry below Immortal with the same ease as Jett or Raze, with the main reason being the time it takes to learn his kit to its fullest potential. You need hours into this agent to get the best value, so take your time with this B tier duelist. Have you ever asked yourself after a bad game, what am I missing? Sought help from impatient friends? Or browsed desperately for answers that only bring up more questions? Your self-doubting days are over with Discovery, the first game-focused AI. Discovery is trained on the world's leading esports athletes to be your everyday personal coach. That's right, Discovery can help you improve your gameplay by giving you tips and strategies to take your game to the next level. Get started on ProGuides.com. Heading down to C tier, Phoenix has gone down in power significantly, with his kit finding less and less value in ranked. Even though he is the cheapest ultimate with his run it back out of all the duelists, the rest of his kit has suffered more and more as time goes on. His curveball is the easiest flash to predict since he has to be at close angles to get value. His hot hands are okay for healing, but for clearing space you could have used better agents like Viper or Brimstone. And finally, his Blaze is essentially a budget Viper or Harbor Wall that can't last long enough to get the best value. The best way to phrase Phoenix in the current patch: selfish kit with little potential for team play, putting him at the start of C tier, especially for the higher ranks. Neon actually has the opposite problem of Phoenix, in which she requires a lot of team play to get the best value. This means that as a ranked player, you have to involve your team to maximize each play, making even the best Neon players suffer at the hands of bad utility from your own breach flash. Her high gear is great for entries or rotations, but the regeneration time leaves a lot to be desired. The relay bolt is great if you have learned the lineups, but you can just as easily stun your team in tight spaces. Her fast lane is actually the best part of her kit, since you can use this as a pseudo smoke for multiple entry points in any location, but man is it easy to peek through and punish a Neon without utility to back her up. This doesn't mean that she is impossible, however. In fact, it means that she is fantastic in higher elo play where the utility combos shine best. But for anyone below Immortal, let's stick to something more consistent. For these reasons, she ends at our C tier for now. As our only agent in the D tier this patch, we want to put out a quick disclaimer for one of the most popular agents in the game. Reyna is a terrible agent, but there are great Reyna players who make her look viable. This means that unless you are the ultimate player, she is not the ultimate agent. All of this is because her kit is the definition of performance, since two of her abilities, her Dismiss and Devour, require you to shoot someone enough to activate. Her Leer is her only redeeming quality utility-wise, but even that can be shot out. Her ultimate Empress also requires her to perform, since it is not a guaranteed kill unless you can aim really well. Other duelists can use utility to get frags better, so we'll keep her here unless your name is I miss her. For Sentinels, Killjoy has cemented herself as the Sentinel of choice since the chamber meta has left us, and since then, nothing has changed this patch. Her nanos received a slight nerf with earlier line of sight range, but that doesn't change the fact that she can stop a team cold in their tracks on any sight push. Stuck with KJ on the attack side? Well, why not learn some lineups which translate over to agents like KO or Gecko? Her turret can shoot from an infinite range, so as long as you're anchoring a location, it will spot players and potentially kill low HP targets. Her alarm bot makes players vulnerable and gives you information, allowing you to spread your setup across multiple areas of the map. Her ultimate lockdown is still the best zoning ultimate in the game, giving your team the space to take or retake sites in the most consistent fashion. With Cypher having some quality of life changes over the past patches, he has found his way into a strong Killjoy meta in the lowest ranks and the highest ranks. His tripwires find the benefit of being the only global information trips out of any Sentinel, allowing him better lurks than any other agent on the attack side or the best rotations on defense, since he can leave his site or multiple sites without having to be in a specific range. His camera gives him info without the risk, giving him opportunities for spam kills even when his trips are broken. Even his cages help him broker information through audio, and they assist you in taking or retaking space when going for sites. Finally, his weakest ability comes to his ultimate neural theft, with it being cheap but less impactful outside of the macro decision making your team can make. Overall, his kit is strong, but with his ultimate being weaker and the information game being a concept that's hard to play around, he stays firmly in the A tier. Sage is still your healer, but sadly isn't the same battle demon as she was before. With her recent nerfs to her healing orb affecting her self-heal, she has been forced into a team player role, going full support outside of her risky combat grim walls. Sage's heal rework is certainly a double-edged sword, now healing teammates much faster from even lower health. But it is hard to argue for healing orb when Skye's regrowth exists. Overall, Sage gains most value from her wall, which is still an amazing bit of utility to secure risky plants on maps like Bind and Pearl. To add to that, it's also highly effective and easy to understand, though a temporary resource for blocking entryways, as especially combined with her slows, it grants her teammates ample time to run and rotate over. In fact, the slows are even great tools when you go for site hits, or you just want to make peeks more difficult, as you can fortify your teammates' smokes, and keep your opponents shy, not willing to commit to the slowed down snail peek. Easily the most confusing part of her kit is her ultimate, which looks great on paper, but comes with some caveats in this thing that we like to call reality. Sova, Brim, and even Raze all have tools to effectively shut down any revive attempts you may make, and that's assuming people even die in revivable positions in the first place. I know it's easy to yell, skill issue, or just wall and res, Lamau, but even an insane player like Cryocells only uses revive once in 24 rounds during their split game versus Loud. Oh, and did I mention that that was in round 24? Oh, and did I also mention that it was already a 3v1, so it barely even made a difference? All in all, Sage is great for staple maps like Split, Bind, and even Pearl, but at least now won't rank higher than the B tier. For our last Sentinel, Chamber has found his way into the B ranks, finding ground on the re-release of Bind. With the recent changes across the board and the map favoring operator agents, him being based in areas like A Short, Showers, A Heaven, B Long, or Hookah for early aggression on either side really sets him apart from the other Sentinels. He also has found his place in maps like Lotus or Haven, with tighter areas allowing his rendezvous teleporter maximum value. This doesn't mean he isn't still a shadow of his former self, since his Headhunter is still expensive, his trademark is stuck in limited range now, and his tour de force is now the same speed as the regular operator. This places him right at the back of B tier. Skye is finally leading the pack in the Initiator category, being that her kit is easy to use, creates value on every map, and is relatively cheap for the information and regeneration of her utility. Her guiding lights are now definitely the best flashes in the game, since you can now guarantee specific information in a wide variety of locations while being able to peek off the blinded voice lines. They also regenerate throughout the round, letting you average 2 flashes per game if you have good utility usage. Trailblazer also scales up compared to Sova's Owl Drone, since you get more information, crowd control, and damage off of a cheaper utility. Regrowth is also the strongest healing ability in the game, allowing you to heal up to 400 HP across your team per round. The only reason we don't have an S tier for Skye is because her ultimate seekers are lacking where the other initiators may have an edge. But it doesn't mean it still isn't strong for information gathering, site takes, or retakes. Overall, her versatility over the other initiators and the prevalence of small maps we now see in the pool puts her at the top of the A tier. Sova is still the king of info initiators, lineups, and outplay potential. Time will tell you that typically the longer someone has played Sova, the more versatile their utility usage and knowledge is of the game. His Recon Bolt is still the best direct information tool, since it outlines most players over the longest period of time across the longest distances. His Shock Bolt clears utility and is great in combination with vulnerable utility like Viper's Molly or Killjoy's Alarm Bot. His ultimate, Hunter's Fury, is a versatile ultimate that can counter agents like Killjoy with her lockdown or in post-plant scenarios on diffusers. It can also be paired greatly with a tag from Sova's Owl Drone, but sadly that's also the weakest part of his kit at the moment. Outside of tags for ultimates, the value decreases the more you look at it. It is expensive at 400 credits, it requires some practice to get the movement down for maximum value clears, and it is slower than similar utility like Trailblazer and makes you extremely vulnerable to your opponents in a similar fashion. This is not to say that it isn't to be used. It is to say that it is the most situational piece of utility in his kit, and for him the A tier it is. For Gecko, he is the newest initiator with a lot of value to be had and still learned. It will take some time for people to be familiar with this kit, but that doesn't mean it's so overpowered it will give you an edge over everyone else. One major factor that places him above some of our other old and faithful initiators in B tier, and that comes with his regenerating utility. This factor alone brings up his value significantly, since the cooldown times on everything except for his unregenerable mosh pit are extremely low, allowing for multiple uses in one round. His wingman has the same lineups as Raze's Boombot, so areas like Hookah on Bind are perfect. His Dizzy is a unique flash you cannot easily dodge, but is easily breakable. His mosh pit has the same lineups as agents like Killjoy or KO, so that way you can now find a lot of fantastic post plants or execute mollies. Finally, his ultimate brings out the best of Killjoy's lockdown with its detain ability and the clearing capabilities of Sky's Trailblazer, making it a weird but very cute hybrid creature. This is all on top of the fact that you can use his ultimate twice in one round, meaning he is the only agent where you are guaranteed a second chance if you miss. The largest factor putting him back is how you regen, since you have to physically pick it up to where you threw whatever you have thrown. So be safe picking it up, little bro. Fade has found less and less value primarily due to Killjoy becoming such a menace throughout the current meta, so her power has gone down slowly in time. That doesn't mean her kit isn't still strong, it's more that it's unsuited for the current playstyle we are experiencing. Her Haunt is great in tight maps, but gets outshined by the info that Sova's Recon Bolt can gather. Her Seize is still best comboed with utility like Paint Shells, but it can still stall an entire push on its own. Her Prowler is great in combination with her Haunt or Ultimate Nightfall since it tracks the trails given by tagged players. Otherwise, it falls short to other similar utility. Nightfall, like we mentioned, is great with Prowlers, and it provides great information in a set area, but it's not a guarantee of space, kills, or countering other agents in the S tier. We put Fade comfortably in the B tier. KO feels like he should be higher with the value that comes from completely denying utility with either his zero endpoint knife or his ultimate null command. But the sad reality is that the rest of his kit has become less efficient in the current meta and on the current map pool. While he can be used generally well on a lot of maps, KO favors more open spaces for his kit to truly shine in full. So maps like Breeze or Ascent put him in strong contention to be A tier or better. However, most of the maps in the pool now require more information in tighter spaces, and his kit can be easily dodged or ignored with how other agents play. Similar to Fade, this doesn't make him weak, just unfit for how the game plays now. Like mentioned, his 0 point is still great to gather information and deny utility, but lineups are required for better value. His flash drive is really great as a solo flash maker or for team flashes, but you need to learn set flashes to get better value on his left click. His fragment grenade is okay generally, and it's great when clearing specific vertical locations like Hell on Ascent, but it does have better counterparts in every other scenario. His ultimate puts him firmly in B tier since you get the value of Phoenix's ultimate while also disabling an entire area's map utility while you're still alive. Breach finishes off with a similar disclaimer. He is a must-pick agent on Fracture, but outside of this map, he is nowhere near needed and is an easy C tier pick. The reason being is that the lanes on Fracture you fight in to clear space need his stun or flashes in areas like A main, Arcade, B main, or Drop. All of these areas favor Breach since the time for his utility to land in these areas is faster than any other initiator, meaning for the maps that you have to fight for space in to play properly, Breach is your main initiator pick. With that out of the way, he really isn't strong outside of this niche pick. His fault lines are great in specific set plays or reactively, but it will easily lose value if you do not take the space he is stunning. His flashpoint is difficult to dodge in tight spaces, but long angles like mid on Ascent will make it the easiest flash to dodge in the game. His Aftershock no longer kills Killjoy's lockdown, but the space it clears is still enormous when retaking or taking sites. Finally, the thing that we love to hate, his Rolling Thunder, is an aggressive tool to use when taking space. However, if I have to die one more time to a fully stunned enemy, I actually might lose it. It feels like the weakest and strongest ultimate all in one, with either the enemy team being more accurate because they are shooting slower and moving less, or being about as accurate as a stormtrooper on a good day. Realistically though, he is still an alright agent, just not one we'd recommend outside of Fracture. Omen has returned to his throne at the top of the S tier, fighting his battles to be the best ranked controller in the meta once again. His kit favors perfectly into rising double duelist or double controller meta, since he can play every map effectively with the removal of Icebox. Paranoia is still a strong flash, allowing you to set your team up or yourself for playmaking combos. His Shadow Walk works great with Paranoia, giving you a chance to go for a backstab play when your duelists are lacking. It also gives him a means of an escape, verticality, and outplay. His dark cover is a great smoke for its regeneration abilities, pulling out a shorty or finding a unique one-way easier than any other controller. While you can't do them at any point in the wall anymore, most of the powerful ones he was formerly using can still be found. You just need to spend some time offline to find them. While his From the Shadows is not as strong as we'd like, it's still great utility for your team in gathering information in the site you are hitting, rotating to and from different parts of the map, and grabbing Spike when your Duelist int before you can say 1, 2, 3 to swing. Brimstone has never looked thicker. With his favorite map returning in Bind to the map pool, he has climbed up to the top of the A tier. He still has the easiest barrier to entry out of any smoke agent, and he can be played across all the maps consistently with all of his utility finding value. His Incendiary is the strongest molly in the game, with his post plant being a nightmare on defense. His Stim Beacon is great for fast hits, fast retakes, or just slamming down locations like Haven's garage doors. His Sky Smokes also last the longest out of any smoke, with him also being the only smoke agent who can put down 3 at the same time. His Orbital Strike is also a diverse and easy way to use an ultimate that will surely net you some kills. The limiting factor that limits him compared to Omen is his smoke range. Brimstone still doesn't have global smokes across his maps, forcing him to play in awkward rotation areas on defense in order to get his smokes out on certain maps. With this being said, we think Brimmy is a jack of all trades and master of none from the controller class. Viper is by far still the best controller for wall smokes in the game. This makes her as an A-tier agent great as a secondary controller pick on maps like Pearl, Lotus, or Bind. This being said, we do not, and I repeat, do not recommend her solo controller in the current map pool. This is because the wide open maps from previous patches like Breeze or Icebox made her a must pick due to the pure size of areas where you needed to take or retake space. But this is no longer the case. But also that does not diminish the quality of her kit to complement other controllers to create suffocating compositions. Her snake bites are unique in the way that she gets 2 mollies that vulnerable enemies, making it perfect comboing util for nades, other mollies, or ultimates. They also pair well with her poison orb, making the decay effect stack with the vulnerability and damage you take from the snake bites. It also creates unique one-ways that regenerate like the one found in A Showers on Bind. Her toxic screen, like mentioned, is easily the best wall smoke in the game, but the reason is because it is globally triggered after placement. This makes her lurks really powerful as a secondary controller and lets her flex her shoes into the Sentinel roles holding down flanks or sights on her own. This is especially helped by the Viper's Pit for defense, since you lock down space in your own toxic bubble to deny attackers any wiggle room. Astra leads the B tier because of a harsh reality she inhabits. You kind of have to be Immortal Plus to get the best value out of her kit since it requires a higher macro understanding of the game with consistent communication across your team. The actual utility itself is still on par with Brimstone or Omen, but the skill required is arguably the hardest out of any agent in the game. Her ability to globally put down utility in quick fashion is nice for quality of life, but the astral form you have to take can be detrimental to your team's scaling if you lag behind in a vulnerable location. Her Gravity Well is extremely strong for stopping pushes anywhere on the map. Her Nova Pulse can be used to stun anywhere on the map, and her Nebula Smokes can be used anywhere on the map too. And you can also take these stars back to fake a Nebula Smoke for cheeky kills. Her Cosmic Divide cuts audio, bullets, and sights up in any direction you want across the map. That everywhere around the map part of her utility, this means that you need to talk to your team to know when and where to place these stars. This can be especially hard in ranked, so have some duos to help you out. Harbor finishes out our list here at the end of B tier since more and more players are getting familiar with his kit over time. While also a difficult agent, Harbor lacks the value in his kit as a primary controller that Astra does, but makes up for it in being an arguably better secondary controller than Viper. This is to say that the best option for Harbor is to be played with a Viper, as the double wall comp is a great complement to all maps in the pool. We will also say here, do not play Harbor as a solo controller unless you are in high Immortal Elo. We give him the exception over Viper in this case since his kit can technically smoke more areas than Viper could in a vertical fashion more consistently. The only thing is that he just has a harder kit to learn. His Cascade fits great with Sky's flashes as it pushes down lanes or offers really well, but it can just as easily be messed up and have the only top of the wall peek through the ground if done improperly. His Cove is very unique as a smoke since you can plant safely while inside of the smoke from enemy gunfire. However, it is easily broken, and once it breaks, it disappears faster than a lot of players can react. His High Tide is easily the hardest part about his kit. Since you have to direct his wall in unique and interesting ways to cover the areas you are hitting, it makes him difficult to run on his own. The ability to slow enemies through your smokes does give you a slight edge over Omen, Brimstone, and Astra in his own unique way, but it is not enough to push him past the decay of Viper in value. His Ultimate Reckoning is a really nice addition to his slowing utility, since it forces players to move or be stunned, giving you not only information but also potentially free kills. He does suffer from the Breach stun effect, in that his stun can be a 50-50 on if it works or not. Generally though, his kit gets more value with the space and dynamic ability he shows as a complementary controller. With the new patches coming through for ranked, we hope this guide will give you some comfort in picking what you like best, or let you reevaluate so you find what you can climb up the ranks with. If you enjoy the content, please like and subscribe for more, and we'll see you next time.